so I stopped having fire and warm up. If I were to teach someone who spends a lot of time outdoors one thing, it would be how to reliably make a fire.
My name is Laura Zara.
Look at my face.
I'm a survival and backcountry specialist.
Don't fall into that trap.
We just got chased down the mountain by a very angry swarm of bees.
I have a hard time explaining what I do and what my life looks like, but it's way easier to just show you.
Javelin of another elk to get the ivory out. It's just not the best spot to be.
Learn what it takes to become decivilized.
Knowing all the basics to making a fire in any situation is way more important than learning every single method there is to make a fire. If you can be out in any conditions, whether it be snowing, raining, windy, whatever it is, and you have an implement for making fire, it doesn't matter what that is, as long as you get a fire every time. So many people want to get ahead of themselves and learn more complex methods of making fire. It's like, just learn how to make a fire when you need it, because that's when it counts. Think about that. If you're gonna be somewhere camped, set up, it's really nice to make a fire ring. You are blocking wind with rocks. You're also preventing the fire from spreading out here in the West. There's a lot of pine needles. The rocks act as sort of a fire break for that. You usually make a circle because it's beautiful and squares are weird. So it also provides access for everyone in case you're having just like a giant family fire out in your emergency situation or camping. The reason that I like to put one tall rock in my fire pits is because a common problem is that smoke is getting in your face when you're sitting around a fire. And the whole white rabbit thing, while it's really cute and occasionally randomly happens to work, it's not consistent. The big rock acts as a chimney and the smoke wants to travel up that rock. As air heats up, it rises and cool air comes in from the sides to replace it. When you have a body or a rock, it prevents that cool air from coming in, and what happens is a low pressure area kind of gets formed there and the smoke tends to want to go there. As the object is warmer, or like your body, it's already warm, it further creates the effect of the smoke wanting to rise up along whatever object that is. So I would rather have it be a nice warm rock that's heating next to my fire than my body. So when I'm gathering wood, I try to have it in different piles based on size. When I'm setting up my fire, the structure is really important, and I just end up using the same one all the time because this is the structure that I use when I'm making fire in the rain. I find it works really well. It kind of creates a point at the top where the flames all converge. So you can give it the right amount of fuel, it's still getting air from the sides, and has this amazing effect where even if the wood is soaking wet, the heat from the smaller sticks in the middle burning starts to dry the wood on the outside, and it will eventually catch. I take 3 sticks, and these are my base, and this creates a little pyramid where my tinder is gonna go. So this area, it shouldn't have anything in it yet. I'll put the tinder in it after. If I was making a bow drill fire, that's where I would shove the tinder bundle. When I'm arranging all of the wood I've gathered, I put it into different piles. So I have about pencil lead thickness, about pencil thickness, about finger thickness, which is kind of like up to the person, and then bigger than that, like maybe a gigantic person's thumb to a wrist of a small person. So those are my specific piles. I start with the pencil lead thickness, and that's what you put on first. Just kind of stick it on the outside, and then I'll stick it on the back. Doesn't have to be perfect, close is good. And then I move to the next, which is the pencil size, and I'll do the same thing. Break into 3 or so piles just to make it easy, kind of flattening them out with my hand. I'll stick them on there, making sure that that door is still open. And then I move up to finger or so sized. My giant thumb to small person's wrist sized wood goes on next. So for tinder, I use basically stuff that you wouldn't want to keep around if you didn't want something to burn down. I usually use grass and pine needles here out west, kind of do a little combination, and I shove it right in the center in that door that I left open. And when I have my ignition source, whether that's a match, a lighter, whatever method I'm using, I just put it right in here in the base. I hold it underneath that tinder bundle and it'll start catching that on fire and then moving up. Fire works from small to big. So the very small stuff is going to catch really easily. If it's wet, the water's gonna be pushed out, it's gonna burn quicker, but it's not gonna burn for long. Even though the fuel that you're burning in the beginning isn't gonna last for very long, it's gonna be big enough to catch the next layer on fire. And as it continues to catch bigger and bigger stuff on fire, it's going to catch on fire. If you try to just throw a log on that tinder, there's no transition. It can't just go from like tiny little particles that are gonna catch really fast but not last for long to like a massive piece of wood and expect those little tiny fibers to be able to catch the wood on fire before it goes out. So having all the stages and building up to that, hugely important. Don't get ahead of yourself. In a situation where it's pouring rain and all of my wood is really wet, I'm gonna start stacking my wood around the fire, and this way it's not gonna be as smoky when it does burn. It'll start steaming as the water gets pushed out, but it's a great thing to think about if you're in super rainy weather to try to dry out some of your wood. In an incredibly rainy climate or in the spring when it's pouring down rain, I will have a fire underneath a tree as long as I know that it's gonna continue raining. I'm not gonna set the ground on fire. It offers some protection for the fire as well as me, as well as my firewood. So that's the time when I'll look for a big cedar tree and potentially have a fire under that, especially if I'm near a water source like a river.
Sometimes you wait days for it to rain so you can show how to make a fire in the rain, and the weather doesn't cooperate, so you have to make your own. I try to make a shelter with my body and use this amazing stuff called fire paste while protecting everything. Do not get your lighter wet. But this stuff is great. It's lit, even in the rain.
When the fire starts catching, this whole teepee structure is going to want to collapse. And I usually come in with a stick, help it fall exactly where I want it, and sort of rearrange the wood so that all of the fire is really centered on your firewood pile. It's kind of an art to doing it, but the way I think about it is it's gonna be a stronger fire if it's all concentrated at a center point. If you have like 5 different fires going on, it's not gonna be as powerful as if you have one fire in the middle that is all working towards itself. Little fires that are separate are gonna be pulling oxygen away from each other. Have the fire focused in the center, have all the wood kind of crossed over a central point, and that way your fire will smoke less, it'll be stronger, the wood will catch easier, and you'll have to blow on it less. When you're adding wood on the fire, make sure that you're leaving enough room for circulation of air. You don't want to put all of your wood just piled on top of the same spot. You want to leave pockets for air to be able to move through. Not all wood is created equal. You want dry, standing, dead wood preferably. A great way to test if wood is good or not is to try to break it. If it cracks, awesome. If it makes a really soft, wet sound, probably not. It'll be the equivalent of burning a sponge. You're gonna be smoky and miserable. Punky wood is the worst kind of wood to make. Punky wood is the best kind of wood to use if you're trying to make a smoky fire, but that's generally not the case. You can tell it's punky because it's soft, it looks rotten. I mean, punky is just another word for rotten, I think. But it tends to hold water, and if you pick something up and it looks like it's gonna be heavy and it's really light, it's probably not great firewood. Starting a fire from coals, not as difficult as you might think. As long as you can still feel heat, you're in good shape. And if you can't tell if you can feel heat, blow on your coals. Once you blow all that white ash off, if you can see glowing orange, you're in good shape. If your fire is too smoky, you have probably one of two problems. Either the wood you're using isn't of good quality or it's too wet, or you aren't having enough fuel on your fire, so add some wood on it.
Really, depending on how cold your coals are, you can either take tinder or little sticks or a combination of both, put them on top of your coals and blow underneath. Sometimes it helps to press down.
If I'm adding wood, it's not lighting right away, I'll blow right at the base of those coals.
Yay!
When you have more flames, you have less smoke. So the more flames you can get, the better.
If you're blowing from the top, you're just like blowing the flames around. If you're blowing on the coals, you're actually giving it oxygen, adding heat to the fire, which will grow your flames. Like that.
Technique I like to use if wood is too large and I can't break it is the backcountry chainsaw. Basically shove one end through two trees that are either split or really close together and use leverage to your advantage. Don't die. If I'm out in an area and I have fire that I'm using for warmth, it's an emergency situation and I'm really cold, maybe it's night, in those last seconds I have before night falls, I will try to find what I call an oh shit log.
What?
This is basically in case all hell breaks loose, it starts pouring rain, and I want to preserve the fire that I do have. So I'll find a really big log that's potentially even punky. At this point, it doesn't matter. It just needs to be something big enough that I can move over my fire, that it's gonna protect it from the onslaught of rain. It's just gonna save enough coals that I can start the fire again later. Ta-da! Try to avoid using green wood as firewood. That is wood that is still alive. For one thing, you're probably ripping live branches off a tree, which kind of sucks. But the other reason is they're full of water, so they're gonna be really smoky on your fire. Hardwoods are basically deciduous trees. Softwoods are basically conifer trees. And the difference is that hardwoods are gonna give you a nice bed of coals. They're gonna burn for a really long time, whereas softwoods are gonna burn a lot quicker. So it's really nice to use softwoods when you're starting your fire. Like throw a bunch of conifers on there, that thing is gonna get lit, but it's not gonna last. And if you're looking to try to cook over it, something like that, the coals aren't gonna stay hot for very long. So it's good to know the difference. Sometimes you don't have a choice, but if you do, you do.
Ember holes covered with duct tape on my expensive down sleeping bag. This is why you do not sleep close to the fire unless you want this to happen.
It's a really nice thought to be able to sleep right next to your fire in your sleeping bag, but in all reality, anyone who's ever sat next to a fire has probably had the experience of a hot ember just getting chucked out, landing on you, and slow burning into your clothes until not only you have holy clothes, but it's burning your leg, or your hair, or your beard. Not for me usually, but drying your clothes is really tempting. You have a nice fire, maybe you got soaking wet, but you kind of got to toe that line. When you're trying to rush it, you're moving your socks closer and closer and closer to the fire. Can't tell you how many times I've had a sock just melt. Same thing with shoes. I've seen people literally not be able to put on their hiking boots because they were trying to dry them, they were trying to rush it, and it melted. All of a sudden, you don't have a boot. So better to have a wet boot than no boot. I've always said that. When you are making a fire ring, if you're having rocks that are gonna be in the fire, the biggest issue with that is you have to be careful where you're sourcing your rocks from. If you're getting them from a riverbed, be careful, because if there's water inside of the pores of that rock, as it heats up, it'll expand, and occasionally they explode. I was out in Australia, made a nice fire pit, didn't know that most times of the year these rocks were underwater, and next thing I knew, pieces of shale were flying past my face. The rocks started to just explode like grenades, and I escaped with both eyes, but it was close. Also be careful of what you are burning. If you have poison oak, poison ivy, poison sumac, don't throw it in the fire, because those fumes actually can become airborne and give you poison ivy down your esophagus, which is probably the second to last place that I would hope to not get poison ivy.
Ew.
If you play with fire, you're gonna get burned, unless you know what you're doing. When I go and gather my wood, I break it down into That sound weird. I think everything's gonna sound weird.